Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you and your family cruise a little smarter. And I'd like to welcome back to the show today, our second day of recording in a row. Oh my gosh, she's actually been off a ship for 2 days in a row. How are you doing today, Christy?
I'm well. I have my land legs.
You're still rocking back and forth from that last cruise, huh?
No, I'm good. Actually, I recovered. Okay, listeners, I was just on Celebrity Apex and I actually didn't take my Dramamine in the middle of that cruise because you didn't feel it at all. Now, it wasn't going very far, but you did not feel you were moving. It was amazing.
Well, I'm curious to hear from our guest today what his experience was on it, because he was on a brand new ship. And before we bring him in, why don't we talk about a different cruise line that we've never talked about, Christy?
This cruise line, it's like they try to advertise as almost an uncruise line, like a cruise line that is not for cruisers, right? Isn't that how they first started advertising? So I cannot wait to hear what this experience was like.
Definitely. Well, welcome back to the show. It's been a long time since we've had you back, but he is the co-author of he's one of the co-authors of the Unofficial Guide series, president of Touring Plans, and he's also the lead tequila taster at La Cava del Tequila. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Len Testa.
How's it going, Stephen? Hey, Christy, how's it going?
It's a pleasure to have you back. And we are really excited to hear about this because I peruse through Twitter generally in the morning when I'm having coffee. And I think I saw you tweeted out something about sailing with Virgin Voyages. And this was, and I want to make sure I said this right because I didn't screenshot it, but it was the best cruise experience ever.
Yeah. So the top line summary was, this was, if not my favorite cruise, one of my two favorite cruises of all time. And for my daughter, who I took with me on the cruise, she said not only was it her favorite cruise of all time, it was her favorite vacation of all time, which is a really big statement. So we'll go over that and what she liked about it and what I liked about it and stuff like that.
Somebody such as yourself who's traveled quite a bit, that is saying a lot in those statements right there. Well, I guess let's just jump into it. Before you went on this cruise, what did you know about Virgin Voyages?
I didn't know anything about them. The interesting thing for me, before they had started sailing, and my cruise was October 6th, and that was the first sailing on the Scarlet Lady. The thing I was trying to figure out beforehand was who their demographic is, right? Because we write the Unofficial Guide to Disney Cruise Line, with Aaron Foster and Richie Halpern. And in that, we're always trying to tell people, like, if you've got this much money and you want to do X, this is the cruise line for you, right? And, where DCL is really, really strong is in their kids programs. So, the demographic there is families, probably with small children. So you think, ages 25 to, 45 with small kids. And the question was then, what is the demographic for Virgin and how would that be different than like Royal Caribbean or Cunard or Celebrity, right? Because Christy, you were just on the Apex, right? Where do they fit in and what's the value proposition? That was my big thing going in. And we had talked to Virgin a little bit about where they fit in, but it was, people say one thing and it was interesting to see how it's actually executed. The cruise that I went on was 4 nights. It was out of Miami. It was originally supposed to be Key West, Bimini, which is where they've got their sort of like private area, and then a sea day. But I think you guys know that Key West is not taking cruise ships right now.
Right.
Really the Venice of the West. They're not taking cruise ships either. So we substituted Nassau for
Audible.
Bimini. Yeah, and Nassau is not my top. It's not someplace where I feel I need to get off the ship. So right at the top, I'm like, yay, 2 sea days, right? Gave me more time to see the ship. But yeah, the other thing I knew before I got on the ship was the size of the ship relative to the Disney ship. So the Scarlet Lady holds, I think, 2,700 passengers, which is about 10% more than the Magic or the Wonder. So it's that size ship. It's not a Dream or Fantasy or Wish sized ship. So many fewer people. And I think on my cruise, they said we were 60% full. So 11 to 1,400 passengers is what I heard ish, somewhere in there.
I was surprised. I saw a picture of it next to like the Harmony of the Seas or something like that.
Yeah.
How small it was. I thought it was a bigger ship than that. So more like the Magic or the Wonder.
It definitely felt like a Magic or Wonder ship. It did not feel like the an Oasis or a Quantum class ship on Royal. But that was good too. The other thing that I think Virgin does differently than Disney is around dining, and we could probably spend half an hour on dining, and I'm absolutely fine with that. There are no sort of main dining rooms, rotational dining thing. It's much more like cruise lines where you get to pick and choose where you go each night. And that means though that instead of having a guaranteed reservation at restaurants, you have to make your own reservation with the restaurants. So that's one big difference there. The difficulty there was they've got many, many places to eat. So they've got this place called The Wake, which is steak and seafood. They've got a Mexican place called Pink Agave. They've got a veggie forward place called Razzle Dazzle. They have this experimental thing called Test Kitchen. Have you guys been on Royal where they do, was it Wonderland?
I am familiar with it. I have not dined there, but with the whimsical and little dishes and
small,
all of that.
A lot of molecular gastronomy, smoke, and interesting bubbles worth of things like strawberry caviar, that type of thing. They do that. There's a Korean barbecue restaurant called Gunbae, and then they have like a 24-hour place where you can get things like panini and pizza and things like that. So they have a variety of dining things. The big difference between them and DCL, again, is that DCL has rotational dining. You're at the same service every night, and here you have to make up your own reservations. So that's like one more preparation step you got to do.
And do you do that before the cruise?
Yeah, so you would use the app for that. Okay. So the Virgin Voyages app, which is similar to the DCL Navigator. I will say this: I had a lot of difficulty using the app. This is their first year of operation, because the app is used for everything, every kind of reservation that needs to be made. You basically live in the app, and the app was not working well for me. So like, not only do you make dining reservations, but you make shore excursions on it as well.
And you have like a master's in computer science.
I have a master's in computer. I have an undergraduate and a graduate degree in computer science. I have two.
I feel like if somebody could use an app, it would be you.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Apparently, a couple of weeks before the sailing, they released a new version of the app, but there were technical issues with it. And the way that they were telling us to resolve it was to delete the app and reinstall it, which is never a good sign. And that actually did work. So we were able to make some shore excursion reservations and then a couple of dining reservations. The good news is that once we were on the ship, everything on the app, that part of the app worked reasonably well, and we were able to modify reservations and things like that. But it was technology is an issue that we'll talk about. Yeah, so the ship goes out of Miami. I took the train from Orlando.
Oh,
to Miami the day before.
I am going to need all of this information, please. Please share.
Okay, so here's my thing, because I live in Orlando, right? I had a couple of options. I could have flown to Miami. I could have driven to Miami. I could have taken a bus or an Uber, right? Or I could have taken the train. Flying is out, because flying would have been like $400 and basically taken as long as every other option, right? By the time you get to the airport and get from the airport, and it's just, flying was not the option. I could have drove, but between the gas I would have used and then parking fees for 5 nights or whatever would have been the most expensive option. So I was left with Ubering, which would have been about $600 round trip, or the train. So the train was, I think, 5 hours, but round trip, picking my own seat, was $72. So the train it was. I will say this: I haven't been on a train in a while. The good news is that Amtrak tells you how full your train is. So I got a regular seat, not first class or anything like that, $72 round trip. And Amtrak told me at the time the train was less than 10% full. And I'm like, okay, no one's going to be near me. That's fine. And the other thing that comforted me was Amtrak has a mask policy, right? You have to wear masks while you're on the train. Okay. So I felt good about that. I get on the train, and number one, half the people aren't wearing masks. Why are we doing this, right? No one's enforcing the mask ban. Number two, the person sitting opposite me, so no one was next to me on the train, but there was someone on the aisle opposite me who was having a two-way conversation with himself the entire way that I was there.
Okay, I'm crossing the train out.
Okay, so here
the train is no longer an option.
I would, and also because the train shimmies back and forth, you really can't get any work done. You can't read. You certainly can't type. So I thought I was going to be able to get some work done. Actually, I couldn't. If I would take the train again, I would have gotten a sleeper compartment, which means I would have just been myself in a compartment, and I would have done that. That would have been like $270, but still cheaper than a plane ride, right? And maybe I could have gotten some work done if I wasn't worried about the guy next to me having a two-way conversation with himself. I think actually at some point it was a three-way conversation, with just him too. I wasn't listening that closely, but I suspect.
Oh my God, that sounds like my worst nightmare.
It was not great. Like I was texting Laurel because Laurel and I are going on a Virgin cruise in January. And I'm like, okay, let me check out the train option to see if we should go Orlando. I'm like, okay, after this, I would not recommend doing a regular train to Miami, but a sleeper compartment is an option. Anyway.
Len, I know that Miami is 40 minutes or something further, but we did the drive over the weekend from just on the other side of the Magic Kingdom to Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
And it wasn't bad.
No, take the turnpike, right?
Yeah. So, and I have zero idea what it costs. It just went through our thing, but it was only 3/4 of a tank of gas, and it wasn't a bad drive at all. Boring, but it wasn't bad.
3.5, 4 hours, depending on how you drive. I mean, going to Miami, probably four and change. For me, the car that we have does not get great gas mileage.
I had a minivan, so it doesn't have great gas
16
mileage.
miles a gallon. Yeah. And then the other thing is do I really want to pay attention for 8 hours of driving, right? That's versus doing 8 hours of work or even 6 hours of work, right? So what works out better for me? In retrospect, taking the train has moved down a little bit. Being driven or driving myself has moved up a little bit. I still think I would probably try the train again in January because my wife and I are going on a Virgin cruise in January, but I would definitely do a sleeper compartment just so we could be by ourselves and not have to worry about, somebody else following the mask rules.
So once you get down to Miami and you guys go through the embarkation process, did Virgin do anything different than what you've experienced on either Disney or Royal? And I'm not sure if you've cruised since COVID.
Yeah, actually they did. So real quick. So actually I spent the night before at the Hilton Biscayne Bay, the Hilton downtown Miami. It was great. 5 minutes to the port, like 10 minutes from the Amtrak station, centrally located, walked a bunch of restaurants. I liked the Hilton. It was good. The next day we got up, Virgin gave us a boarding time of 2 p.m. And so they said, don't arrive earlier than 1. And the interesting thing that Virgin was doing was you didn't have to test before you got to the port. They were doing tests there. The thing I was worried about, especially for Hannah, if it was another cruise line and you have to have a test results within 72 hours, right? Mm-hmm. If you leave on a Sunday and your cruise is on a Tuesday, what if you don't get your results in time, right? Then what happens? And if you schedule it too close, right? Let's say you schedule it for the day before. What if they're running late or your doctor doesn't show up or whatever, right? So you sort of need 2 test days. You want to do the first one, within as soon as that 72-hour window opens up, but you've got to have that backup as well. And so I didn't want to worry about all the logistical things and all the possibilities of things that could go wrong. I think what Virgin's doing is great. Everyone gets tested at the port.
I like that better. And it's a real-time analysis of that moment, not 2 days ago.
It's one thing to know that everyone didn't have COVID 2 days ago. It's another one to know that people didn't have COVID 20 minutes ago, right? That's good. So they brought us in, and it was basically a standard boarding process up into the point where you get the COVID test. So you go through the regular security screening, metal detectors and stuff like that. All of it was straightforward. The last step was they gave you a nasal swab and put you in the gigantic, you guys have been to the Port of Miami, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Put you in a gigantic room with the Port of Miami. They served you champagne and said, we'll send you an email with your test results in 30 minutes. Once you get that, you can get your passport, get your cabin number, and board the ship. And that's exactly what happened. Took 35 minutes, got the results. They gave us champagne. We got to take pictures with mermaids. That's the sort of the icon of the ship. And then we boarded. One interesting thing about boarding process was though we were in one terminal and we had to cross 2 terminals to board the ship. And that's because I guess Virgin is building their own custom port terminal in Miami, and they wouldn't let us take pictures of that. We could take pictures in one of the COVID testing and of the waiting for the champagne. We could take pictures where we were on the ship, but that walk between the areas we couldn't take pictures of, which was a little strange.
Will that be done by your next cruise?
No, I don't think so. No, there was a lot to be done in the next 3 months. Yeah, next year I think is when it'll be done.
I was going to say you can take some pictures of some rebar or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was like, here's a small bulldozer in a plain concrete room with rebar. Like, okay, I don't know what sort of technical secrecy that entails, but whatever. So we get on the ship. The interesting thing about the ship is, how DCL typically has a multi-story atrium that you enter in. Virgin's is actually much more subdued. Its atrium is called the Roundabout, and it's got a circular spiral staircase that goes up. But you can't see up in the atrium the way that you can on the Disney ships. It's still stylish because it's a sort of a floating spiral staircase, which looks pretty interesting, but it's definitely not the big room that you enter like when you go in DCL. One of the things I liked about Virgin was getting on the ship was super easy. All of the cabins, all the staterooms were already open, so we could walk directly to our room.
But it was the first cruise, and it was 2
first
o'clock.
cruise.
So in theory, all of those reasons should mean that all occurs.
Right. Yeah. So there's nobody. They weren't trying to kick people off the ship too. Yeah. So that was good. We first thing we did is went and got some food at their pizza place, which is I think it's called literally the pizza place. It was actually the best pizza I've ever had on a ship. And let me just say, I like me some Pinocchio pizza on the DCL. There's something about cheap pizza on a ship that makes it tastier. This was cooked to order pizza. Every pizza was cooked individually. So if you're familiar with like Blaze, pizza or something like that, a little bit smaller, but super tasty, done in a couple of minutes, didn't cost anything extra. Really good pizza. And then we started exploring the ship. And one of the first things that I thought was the big difference between Virgin and DCL was they've got the many small dining options, but also there are no really big entertainment venues on the ship. Instead, they've got many more smaller venues. Like on DCL, they'll do like the main dining rotation, and then they'll work in whatever stage show is that night. And they'll typically do 2 performances of that stage show, one for the people who are getting the late seating, and then one for the people who ate earlier. There's nothing like that on Virgin. It's basically, here's some small things that we're doing around the ship. Some of them are even unannounced. They're these weird, like sort of like pop-up magic shows or karaoke sessions where crew members will just invite you into a room. I know. And like, hey, it's like 6 people in a room. We're going to sing karaoke now. And it's going to be, sea shanties, stuff like that. The entertainment is definitely more hands-on and definitely not the big production number things that Disney does. So our first night, we got settled and everything, got into the cabin. I'll talk about the cabins in a second. Our first night, we went to this place called Test Kitchen, which is experimental dining. So this was 6 courses, each of them featuring a specific cooking technique or a specific ingredient as the highlight. So one of them was, I'll give you one example. One dish was blue cheese in the shape of a mermaid fin with various accompaniments like candied pecans and stuff like that. Super interesting to look at. I don't know that I ever need blue cheese to be the focus of any dish ever. Give them points for trying. The other thing that I thought was really good, they did a medallion of venison. So a venison medallion cooked medium rare perfectly, paired with a blueberry reduction, which it went well. But the funny thing was, I think the thing that they were trying to go for there was deer hitting car, because the plate was a white plate on which was placed this small veal medallion, but it was a little circle, but it was like, imagine the plate smacking the deer at like 60 miles an hour. And so they used blueberry juice as like a fake blood splatter on the plate. It was striking. Actually, it was comically funny the way it was presented. It was great. They did a couple of other things though. They did a poached egg on English peas, which was then smoked, and that was delightful. A couple of other things as well. Yeah, service was excellent. You sit at large community tables for this one. So I think we had 4 or 6 people in our group. We were paired with another 6 people that we had never met before. Again, we were all tested. We'd all tested negative. We were all vaccinated. There were no children, so it was fine. And I will say this, like being on the ship and knowing that everyone had, in the last couple hours tested negative and had been vaccinated, made me very comfortable to eat with strangers without a mask.
So kind of sticking with the food part, then you said that before you left on the app, you made your reservations in the different restaurants you wanted to eat at. Yeah. Were you able to change it while you're on board? Like if you changed your mind?
And in fact,
that's
a great
question I had.
So I did, in fact. Beforehand, we had heard, before I got on the ship, I'd heard Test Kitchen was one of the restaurants we needed to try, and I couldn't get a reservation on there. So as soon as I got on the ship, apparently they had either released some more reservations or something became available, because I was able to get a reservation then. Okay. And that worked. Yeah. And then throughout the day, like I would try and get, we all do this with Disney, right? Disney World, you get a late reservation, and you try and move it up.
Yeah.
And that's what I was able to do. And they were pretty accommodating too for some of those things. I was able to show up like a few minutes early or a few minutes late and get the same thing. Get in.
Could you do like standby too if you wanted to, like just show up and see if somebody?
I didn't try that. I bet you could though. The thing is, unless you want to eat at a very specific place, there are so many dining options. Like you're never gonna wait to eat something on any given day at any given time. There probably could have been 5 or 6 places I would have gladly eaten at.
Was this true for lunch as well?
Oh yeah. So for lunch every time I stuck to this thing called the galley. So the galley is think of it like their cabanas, but as a food court, right? So the galley is sort of the all-encompassing area for restaurants. And they've got, 6 or 7 different places there. So they've got this thing called the Daily Mix, which serves, so first of all, they've got a coffee bar, and I can't remember the name of it. But then they've got the Daily Mix, which is healthy food. So that's like fruit. They do bento boxes for like sushi, granola, things like that. There's a taco place called Let's Taco About It, which I loved. There's a panini place called Hot Off the Press. There's a burger bar called Burger Bar. There's Diner and Dash, which I think is hysterical, which is 24-hour diner and breakfast food. So if you wanted a Western omelet with fries at 2:00 in the morning, you go there. There's a pastry place, like a dessert place called The Sweet Side, which is right next door. There's another place for just pastries and flatbreads. There's a ramen place called Noodle Around. There's one more and I can't remember it, but I mean, tons of options for food. And that worked through the app as well. You would look at the menu on the app. A server would come up and ask you what you wanted from which place. You would give them the order and they would bring you the food. So you didn't have to stand there and get it. You could sit down and relax.
It was like a food court, like a mall food court type of thing,
It is,
but you could
yeah.
order. Huh.
Yeah, but with servers coming to your table rather than you having to, and that's great because like if somebody wanted, like I would have eaten a Western omelet every day for lunch. It's just my thing, right? But if somebody wanted bento or somebody wanted the panini, right, we could have all sat at the same table and not had to get up and So if you're a family, that's the way to do it. And then they've got drink stations, hot and cold, and they've got sodas and teas, and like I said, there's a coffee place. The coffee place smelled amazing. I gave up coffee a couple of years ago, so I didn't get to try it. But I have nothing bad to say about the food on Virgin. It was very good every time I tried it. Like the food, I think, is at least as good, if not better, than DCL, and it's definitely better than Royal everywhere I went.
I love the fact that just Virgin in itself generally doesn't take itself too seriously, so they're having fun with the play on words there.
Yeah,
but,
so this is there's a couple of other places. Yeah, there's an ice cream place called Lick Me Till Ice Cream, which serves gelato as well. The pizza place is called The Pizza Place, right? But yeah, like I said, the food was definitely better quality than I expected, and at least as good as DCL. Definitely better than Royal everywhere I went.
Just to go back so people know, the food is included, like all of the food. So there's not specialty restaurants that upcharge you anything like that.
Right. Now there are upcharge things you can get at the restaurant. So one day, for example, we went to the Korean barbecue place. Have you guys done Korean barbecue before?
Yes.
Okay. So imagine for those of us, for the listeners who haven't, imagine a central cooking area, like a little grill on which you place like meat on sticks or vegetables, right? So you cook individual pieces and then you eat them as they come out. So the Korean place is called Gunbae, BAE, like, hey, bae, which again, very funny. The one upcharge there was you could get Wagyu beef.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's not like, they're not giving you steak. You just, if you want.
You're getting, you get steak. Actually, I think it was short ribs, which were better than the steak, but you could get steak if you wanted to. And let me just say, it was an amazing amount of food. Like I did not finish $45 worth of Wagyu. It was that much food. The Korean barbecue was delicious. The other place that we ate, it was really good. Their Italian restaurant is called Extra Virgin. They make the pasta in-house. And here's where it gets different from Disney. Like Disney, when you're seating, if there's 4,000 people on the ship, right? They've got the 3 main dining rooms. It's broken up into two seatings, right? So at any given time, you've got roughly 600-ish, 700-ish people eating. And, Disney likes to bring out all of the entrees at once or very close to it and then do the big reveal where they pop open the tops. There's nothing like that on Virgin. And the reason is that on Disney, you're waiting for those 600 dishes to be finished before everyone gets served. On Virgin, the restaurants are much smaller and the food is given to you as soon as it's done. And we know this because we sat next to the kitchen on Extra Virgin and we could see 2 things. One, we could actually see them making the pasta. 2, we could actually see them cooking the pasta and finishing it. So there were instances where Hannah was watching them cook her pasta, plate it, sauce it, and bring it out in the span of like 2 minutes. That doesn't happen on Disney. And it results, I think, in fresher food. The thing that I liked about Extra Virgin, though, wasn't the pasta. The pasta was fine. They do this spatchcocked roasted chicken. You familiar with this?
No.
So take a chicken or a whole chicken, split it in half so you can butterfly it out. Put it on a skillet, but then put a hot skillet on top of it so that it sears the
like
skin.
What is that called? Like that pressed like steak or something like that. Yeah.
So spatchcocking. Yeah.
Spatchcocking.
The thing about that is the skin was super crunchy, but there was still a layer of like juicy fat under the skin. And then the meat itself was delicious and tender and moist. It was, and so it was seasoned only with salt and rosemary, and it was delicious. If Hannah had not been done eating like 20 minutes before me, I would have just kept eating chicken. Like it was that good. Yeah. So the food overall was really, really good. The other thing that Virgin has a lot of is bars, as you would expect, all around the ship. I would say more than Disney. The thing that I didn't get from Virgin was the heavy theming that you see on DCL. Like, I think Pink is a great champagne bar, right? I think Ooh La La, maybe a little bit less. It's a little too over the top for me. It's a little too Moulin Rouge. But Disney generally does bars really well. Skyline, great bar. Virgin has bars, but they're more like, like on DCL, like the Promenade bar. They're more like that. Here's this bar that is this thing either near a pool or it's on either side of a walkway on the way to a show or something like that. They're not as heavily themed. The service was still great. It's the one thing sort of I missed about the bars. The one bar that I did like was at the aft of the ship. It's a multi-story bar with plenty of outdoor seating so you can watch the ship, as it leaves port or whatever. And it's got sort of a garden teak wood theme around it. That was really nice, with lights strung up at night to make it look pretty. That looked really, really good, but nothing on the order of a Disney themed bar.
I've got one kind of question about this, and I don't know if it's really going to play out in the Wish, but like on Deck 7, I was looking on the Scarlet Lady, and I think Norwegian does this really well, where they've got outdoor spaces.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a nightlife area or night. I mean, it can be used during the day as well, but was that kind of the feeling of that deck as far as like being able to go into and out the different bars and stuff, or was it all kind of more inside?
Yeah, most of the stuff that we did was inside, not for any particular reason, because it was a great, we had great weather the entire time, but it just seemed more vibrant on the inside.
Okay.
Like the night that we left Nassau, Hannah and I hung out and watched, Nassau go away, and we're looking at the stars and stuff like that. And that was fun. But definitely more people tend to congregate inside.
So it's not like that dual use space where you can kind of be inside and outside at the same time. And
right. No, there wasn't.
Kind of going
like
okay.
That.
Let's circle back really quick on the food subject before we leave it completely. One of our listeners asked, and I was curious about this as well, did you get a sense of their handling of food allergies at all?
So we had a couple of people in our group. One was vegan, and then a couple were vegetarian. And then we had one who had a gluten allergy. So they handled the vegetarian and vegan thing effortlessly. I mean, I think you can't start a cruise line without handling that well. The gluten-free thing, it was probably the first time that anyone in our service had been asked about that, but they were definitely trained on it. So what happened when we mentioned the gluten allergy, the server went and got a list of the ingredients in each dish and said, this is what's here and this is what isn't there. Right. So there wasn't anything that I could tell on the menu itself or gluten. I have to go back and check this. My sense is the app probably listed that. I just didn't notice it.
Okay. Well, that would sound awful. If I had to read personally, because I'm celiac, if I had to personally, and I know one of our other listeners has a couple of allergies, but if we had to go through and read the ingredients for every listing, for every meal, that would get really old quickly.
Yeah. So I think the thing that Disney does really well is they basically separated out their menus to say, for celiac, here's everything you can have, right? Here's the list of menu. And they do this at Disney World, right? And I don't think Virgin has done that yet. I'll go back and check, but that's something where I think they could definitely do
even on, I've been on 5 or 6 cruise lines at this point, and they all seem to handle gluten-free, where you can basically say, this is kind of what I want to eat. Can you make this for me? And they'll come back and say, yes, I can. Or they'll indicate on the menu, yes, this item is gluten-free, or you can kind of tell yourself and you can let them know in advance and they can figure out a way to make it gluten-free. Like even on Disney, there is the Chateaubriand, whatever
Right.
That beef dish is not marked gluten-free, but I can order it gluten-free. They just know in advance that, they know how to deal with that. It's
Right.
easy for them. But if I had to sit and read the ingredients, I would cry.
Yeah, I think for what we ended up doing was saying, this person has this allergy. What needs to be changed on this, or can you make these things gluten free? And invariably they did. But I have to go back now and think about the menu. I don't think the menu listed every possible allergy the way that, like, Disney lists milk allergies and egg allergies and tree nut allergies and peanut allergies, right? They've got,
So
a
they
dozen.
did. So at Walt Disney World, they still have that type of allergy medicine.
Yeah.
Or menu, sorry, allergy menu. At Disney Cruise Line, prior to the shutdown, they actually had launched this allergy menu situation, which would go through and list. After the shutdown, they have not brought that back yet. But
Okay.
on the menu, there's still a couple, like dairy is listed, gluten is listed, and then vegetarian options are listed as well.
Yeah.
And those are just like, these are naturally prepared as a gluten-free dish. Everybody's eating it the same type of thing,
Right.
or whatever. Or then you can say, hey, this isn't listed as gluten-free, but
Right.
can it be?
And I think that's the approach that Virgin is taking. Like, okay. I know definitely the menu is listed vegan and vegetarian. It may have listed gluten. I'll have to go back and check. But like, if you think about like egg or tree nut or things like that, definitely the menus did not list all of the different allergy options. So that's something where you have to ask, like, can you prepare this way? And that brings me back to, remember on the Korean barbecue place Gun Bay, because there is there's one central plate on which everything is cooked. One of the appetizers that everyone gets is shrimp.
Yeah.
So if you're allergic to shellfish, everything after that is contaminated. So you've got to tell people ahead of time on that. And they weren't quite up to speed on that yet. Like, Virgin made the assumption that no one was allergic to seafood, or didn't, wasn't that everyone was shellfish tolerant. But then there were a couple of people who were, I guess, forgot to say that. And so basically everything after that, which included Wagyu and the steak and stuff like that, they just couldn't eat.
Oh, man.
That needs to be redone. Yeah, that part was
the best part.
I know, right? Yeah.
Before we move into the, like, talking about the cabins, I'm kind of curious about Hannah's experience. You said this is probably one of her best vacations ever. Right. What was the age demographics of your sailing, and what was it that she gravitated towards? Was it the, free flowing kind of entertainment, the food, just the feel of the ship? What was her experience?
So we thought going into it that this was my hypothesis, that Virgin was going for the 25 to 40-year-old demographic, people without kids. The idea being that instead of waiting until people are older to experience their first cruise, Virgin is saying, look, come on this cruise before you have kids. You'll enjoy it a lot. Go have kids, do your Disney cruise or whatever. And then once the kids are old enough, leave them at home and come back to Virgin. I honest to God think that's their marketing strategy. The other thing that Virgin is doing, because Virgin is definitely promoting the fact that you can have a good time, drinking, listening to music and dancing and stuff like that on their ships. They are positioning it differently than Carnival in a number of ways. One is it's more expensive. Number two, the public areas are definitely nicer than on Carnival. Number three, I'm trying to think of a good way to say this. Virgin wants people who are cool with every walk of life being on their ship, right? So
they're very accepting.
They are the most inclusive thing I've experienced, both from a crew and a public perception anywhere. Walt Disney World, if you include the cast members and the guests, are not as inclusive as what I saw on Virgin. And that's saying a lot, because Disney's very inclusive. As long as you're cool with everyone, Virgin is the cruise line for you. And I think that's what Hannah liked. The vibe of the people that are attracted to Virgin was definitely a hit for me. Then for Hannah too. Like, I felt super comfortable with everyone on that ship. And you could tell too, the crew is that way. They're very accepting. Like, all the stage shows, super accepting. There's a drag queen brunch apparently that's going to happen. Didn't happen on our cruise, but yeah, that's the sort of vibe. So Hannah, we're on a cruise ship. She got to drink a little bit. She felt very comfortable going out, staying out late. I felt comfortable, like, going back to the cabin at 1 o'clock in the morning because I'm old and I can't stay out late anymore. And knowing that somebody was going to take care of Hannah and she would be fine. So that was very comforting to me. Yeah, the vibe of the people on the ship was definitely a selling point.
I love hearing the inclusivity of it and the I guess the feeling that you guys felt safe. I mean,
Yeah.
being, cruising on that ship.
For me, I mean, the other thing that I liked about it is, I think I've said this before, I can't dance. I cannot dance at all. Like when I dance, it looks like I'm having some sort of like physical breakdown, maybe set to music, right? But I like to dance, right? I enjoy music. I like to do the thing that I call dancing, right? I don't do it because I'm self-conscious and I'm an introvert, but because everyone around me was super cool. I actually danced on the cruise ship. And again, I'm not going to say I was good or even socially acceptable, but no one at least made open fun of me for doing it. And I really enjoyed that a lot.
You were able to let your hair down and have a good time.
I know. Look at the hair too. Yeah. Yeah. At one point so their going away party, their sailing away party is actually different. I don't think it really gets going until 11, but it's on the pool deck. And they encourage you to dance on top of the pool area, which means
a very large pool area.
Very large pool with lots of music, and people invariably jump into the pool clothed or semi-clothed while they're doing it. I did not jump into the pool clothed, but I did dance, and it was super cool. The next day, of course, was Nassau, and we hung around the pool and made friends, which would come in handy on our third day at Bimini. We'll talk about that. But the pool was great. I mean, they have a DJ.
But it's really tiny, right? Like
it is a tiny, tiny pool. There's a couple of them.
I think they regret that pool.
No, I think for the size of the ship, it was appropriate. The other interesting thing about it, by the way, is on either side of the main pool are the workout areas. And they've got some extensive exercise areas. They've got a really nice set of cardio machines. They've got, if you want to do spin classes, they've got indoors actually, but facing, it's glass on either side. So you can actually face the ocean or face inside and watch the pool. So Stairmasters, treadmills, bikes with bike classes, free weights, machines, Smith machines. Like Hannah actually woke up. So we do the late night, sailing away party, right? And Hannah's out till like 2:00. She wakes me up at 6:00 and says, let's go to the gym and do leg day. I'm like, Hannah Testa, in the entire history of seagoing people, of everyone who has ever stepped on a ship, no one has ever woken up on the first day at sea and said, let's do leg day. It's never happened. I feel
like you have had an experience something like that, or at least we got to get up and get our 4 miles in before we start the day.
I did my 3 miles, right? And I was like, okay, I'm done, right?
6 a.m. though?
What? Yeah, 6 a.m. She's like, let's go get something to eat and do leg day. I'm like, I'm half with you. Like, I'm with you on the eating part, right? But so she does leg day, and the ship is big enough that you don't feel like weights moving around or anything. So we do that. Then we decide to go to the pool, and that's where we started meeting all of our new friends and stuff. And we met some super cool people. The bar is right there. I think drink prices are very reasonable. Like the markup is 2x, which is pretty good. Good selection of alcohol. So we basically stayed there all day. I forget what reservations we had for dinner, but basically we all decided as a group to go somewhere else, and we did. And so that was that. But the music too was interesting. Like they played a lot of dance music and stuff that I wasn't that familiar with. But every once in a while they'd throw in like Smoke on the Water from Deep Purple from 1960. Yeah, I'm like, what's happening? I mean, I like it, but what's happening here? Yeah, so that was kind of great.
The workout part is definitely one of their selling points. At least if you go to their website, it's eat and drink, events and gigs, and well-being. So yoga classes and all that type of stuff.
Yoga, they've got an elevated. It's called the area. I think it's called Richard's Retreat, and they've got a running track around that's 250 meters. But they've got like monkey bars where you can do pull-ups, and it's right by the second pool area. They've got a boxing ring where you can hit heavy bags and punching bags and stuff outdoors. They've got a ton of outdoor spaces for cardio. They've got an outdoor twister if you wanted to play twister outdoors. I mean, tons of outdoor spaces to exercise in if you wanted to, get your sunlight in. If you want to be active and stay fit while you're on the ship, they've got more stuff than any cruise line I've ever seen.
It's definitely, to me, kind of a lifestyle cruise. I can't find the right word for it, but it definitely hits a definite demographic, I think, all the way across the board.
And for me, it was like young, affluent, physically fit, and inclusive. Those are my 4 big things. And likes to have a good time. Like normally most nights, I'm in bed by 10:00. I was getting ready to go out at 10:00, and I was out till like 2 every night, which is totally not like me. But your friends are out, you have a couple of drinks, there's new stuff to see, especially when it comes to entertainment. There were so many little entertainment venues going on. number one, it's not possible to eat in every restaurant on a 4 or 5 night cruise on Virgin. It's definitely not possible to see all the entertainment in 4 or 5 nights on a Virgin cruise, like not even close. The stuff they were doing around experimental theater, around wandering bands of musicians. So they actually had musicians just wandering the halls that would just stop in an open area and set up, a microphone and a small amp and start singing. At one point, this man and this woman stopped and did an acoustic version of Bonnie Tyler's Total Eclipse of the Heart
Oh man.
on ukulele. And
Oh, geez.
I will never accept any other version of the song other than that now. Like, it was just genius the way they did it. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And there was a lot of stuff like that.
They have these Phantom folk tales, which are like microplays. That's kind of the same thing, right?
Yes. So if you've seen at Universal, what is the name of the Harry Potter Tales of the Beetle Bard?
Uh-huh.
It's like that, but even more condensed. But they have this room I think it's called the Manor. It's right off the casino. And it's a room with 3 smaller rooms. And in those 3 smaller rooms, I heard people like just wandering by the casino get pulled into one of these rooms. And like one time it was a magic show. One time it was karaoke. One time it was to sing sea shanties. Another one was like a self-improvement questionnaire. It was all very strange, but everybody had fun and they're trying a bunch of different things. So
seeing what sticks. Well, I guess before we talk about Bimini, because you guys did go to Bimini, right?
Yes. Bimini was epic.
Let's talk quick about that cabin you went back to at 3:00 in the morning. What were your thoughts of the Virgin cabins? Because looking at the pictures online, at least just the regular cabins, they almost look kind of IKEA-ish.
So a couple of things. We had a Sea Terrace XL, a little bit larger cabin than normal. I think it was, don't quote me on this, 220 square feet, 250 square feet. It was smaller than a Disney Cruise Line ship. On the balcony, starting with the balcony and working our way back in, the interesting thing about the balcony is it has a hammock that is super comfortable to stay in. So it's red. It actually stretches out to cover your entire body. And if need be, you could sleep on that hammock and feel absolutely fine. It was very, very comfortable. Balcony is relatively small, so there's basically a small chair and the hammock, and that's it. So
there's just one chair?
One chair and the hammock, and that's it. The room itself, again, kind of small, uses a computer tablet to control everything. Everything worked. The tablet worked. It's got, nominal number of TV stations. You can get all the cruise information that you want on it as well. The beds are 2 twin beds, but the way that they're connected is super interesting. You could split the beds apart, but like on DCL, when you split the beds apart, they basically become a left and a right side. On Virgin, the way that you separate the beds is they are connected at a pivot point on one corner so that it forms an L shape when you pivot one of them, which means you're either sleeping head to head or foot to foot. If you sleep head to head, which we didn't do, that's fine because your feet dangle off the end. If you sleep foot to foot, which is what Hannah and I did, the problem with that is there's nothing to hold your pillow. There's no headboard on either of the beds so your pillow invariably falls off the edge. I also thought my mattress was really firm, and I did not sleep well at all the entire cruise. I didn't get sore from sitting on it, but it was definitely the most firm mattress I've been on in a long time. Hannah's was less firm, which we realized like with 20 minutes left on our cruise. When I sat down to put my shoes on, I'm like, hey, your mattress is way better than mine. We should have switched 4 days late, but whatever. I will say that the other beds that I tried, so we tried different cabins, and
you laid in everybody else's beds.
I did, in fact, lay in everybody else. I was like, "Does your bed suck like mine?" Exactly how I phrased it, and it turns out I just had a bad mattress. There were a couple of weird things though. So the mattress that was fine. I mean, it got dark. The air conditioning was great. There was enough storage. Had a safe, like all the usual stuff was fine. The bathroom was where I had more concerns. So the shower itself, absolutely fine. It's got one of those dual knob setups where one knob controls the temperature and one knob controls whether it's going through the wand or through the shower head. Mm-hmm. So the good thing about that is once you find a temperature you liked, you just set that knob and forget it, right? Then it's just a matter of, do I want to use the shower wand or the rainforest shower head? And I picked the rainforest shower head. Shower is absolutely fine. Plenty of room in it. They used the 3-part dispenser system. So one body wash, one shampoo, one conditioner that anyone who stayed at a Disney resort recently has seen. No problems with that. No problems with the linens. They were all high quality. I had two concerns with the bathroom. One, I could not find an outlet to plug my electric razor in by the sink. And I looked, like on DCL, sometimes they're like, the plug is on the ceiling.
Right.
I couldn't find one.
Is it underneath the mirror? I'm kind of looking at a picture right here.
I didn't see it.
So was it in the living room part or the main
That's
cabin?
what I ended up doing. I ended up plugging it in the cabin, which is fine. It's just not what I would expect.
Right.
And there was one sink. But the fact that there's one sink means that there's more storage space. We had plenty of storage space. The thing that bothered me about the cabin, and this is almost a deal breaker for me. Okay. There's an architecture trend lately that says we're not going to put doors on toilets. Let me just say right now, that's an abomination. There is not a single person in this world, including my own children and my wife, that I love enough to not have a door in the bathroom. I love everything about everyone I travel with. There are some things I don't need to know, see, or hear, right? And that's one of them. So on Virgin, they have a room for the toilet. The door does not go either to the top or the bottom.
Oh, it's like a soft door.
Yeah, drives me insane. Like literally, I almost got off the ship. Cannot. It's just a deal breaker for me. That one thing. I don't need to know that much about anyone. That's the one thing that bugged me. Other than that, yeah, the cabin was fine. A little bit smaller, like I said, than the Disney cabin. But again, the rates are so much less than Disney. I would make that trade off. And again, we didn't spend very much time in the cabin at all, which I would not say for like Disney or anything like that. I will say the bigger cabins, the Rockstar suites, look to be a reasonably good and less expensive alternative to concierge on DCL. I'll let you know in January when I go on one of those. Also, apparently in the Rockstar quarters, comes with an electric guitar you can actually play too.
Yeah, I was looking at. There's like 3 of them in this picture here too.
Yeah, I found one in one of the rooms. Yeah, and I'm excited. And it comes with record players, and you can request records before you get a cruise. So one of the friends that had the Rockstar quarters picked all of the European EPs for Duran Duran.
Oh,
as their music. So it's like, hey, the 12-inch of Rio. This is nice. I haven't heard this in 30 years. Let's play this. Yeah, it was really good. So
there's something about vinyl too, that sound.
Yeah.
I mean, it is such a fuller sound, I think.
And they had in the main atrium area.
Do you want your neighbor to have the full vinyl sound next to you? I guess if you're partying all night,
soundproofing was absolutely fine. I didn't hear anything from anyone, which was great. Also, if they have record players in the atrium area in the roundabout where you can select records and at certain times of the day play them as well, or give them to a DJ to play too.
I guess to ask one other question about the Rockstar, do you have a sense as far as what is offered with that concierge wise? Do you have like a butler, or when you move up into the suite class, what
let me check. Hold on 1 second.
Certain categories, the really upper end categories, get some liquor in their cabins.
My understanding is they will ask you what alcohol you want. So if you want a specific brand of whiskey or bourbon or whatever, that will be in your cabin. I understand it's unlimited, 24-hour butler service. You get something with dining too. And I don't know if there's a private dining area, or you just get automatic access whenever you want to the restaurants, one or the other.
Lightning lane.
Exactly. I know you get also the showers.
You get a shower?
You get a shower in your cabin, but I think it's like it's like with opaque glass outdoors.
Oh,
so you can take a shower outdoors, and by the way, there's also I think one restroom on the ship that is frosted glass, but not completely frosted. That was super controversial during our pool day. Like you actually had to tell people who were going in, like, oh, by the way, people on the other side of that can see you. Again, very interesting. Yeah. With the suites, you also get Richard's Rooftop, which is a private sunning area. Like on DCL, you get concierge sort of area. You get that as well. You get the bar. You get access to the spa, which we haven't talked about the spa. I really like the spa a lot. Like I think Disney does spas really well. They can do it better than Royal. I thought Virgin's was almost as good as DCL's. There was one sauna room that wasn't working on our ship. Otherwise, I would have said it was just as good.
So kind of a rainforest type area too for before and after your treatment or whatever.
It is. So there's they've got a steam room. They've got a dry sauna room. They have a salt room, which is different than those 3. Then they've got this thing called the mud room, where they give you like a cup of mud, if you will. And the idea is that you're supposed to put it on your hair, your body, basically everywhere. leave it on for 15 minutes and rinse it off. I thought it was like a mixture of like clay and olive oil from the way it smelled. I put it on everything. I would say my hair has never been that soft ever. But not only that, so they've got the saunas. They've got 3 different plunge pools at different temperatures. So you could go like hot to medium temperature, hot to cool, or medium to cool to cold. All of it was indoors, unlike Disney, where some of the spa loungers face outward towards the sea. Everything was focused inward, but it was very stylish and very pretty and not very crowded at all. Like, I think the entire day that I was there, half day that I was there on our sea day, there was one other person in the spa with me. So that was really good. And I got a massage and said, massage was very good, only moderate upselling pressure on it. So that was also something to be aware of. Yeah. So the spa was pretty good too.
Well, let's move on to Bimini. I'm really excited to hear what they've done there with the Perfect Day at Coco Cay, being so talked about with Royal Caribbean. Yep. What was your experience like there, Juan?
So let me start by saying I think Castaway Cay is the best island in the Caribbean. I love Castaway Cay. I like the fact that you can wander around and play things and not have to worry about people from other parts of the island coming over and stealing your stuff if you set it down while you go in the water. So I was interested for Virgin's Bimini area because it's a shared space. Right? It's not a private island. In fact, when you get off the ship, the tram that takes you to Bimini Beach House is also the one that takes you to Hilton's Resort World Resort, which is also on Bimini. So in fact, that's the first stop. The second stop is the Virgin place. It's all outdoors. The interesting thing to me was the Bahamas has a mask required policy, except when eating or drinking or actually in the water. That was not enforced literally a single time the entire day that we were moving. No one was wearing masks. And again, we were all vaccinated. We were all tested. I'm okay with it. That was fine. So the way that Bimini is set up, have you guys been to Aulani? Like when you go to Aulani, you go into the entrance area. It's basically open air and you can see beyond it to the beach and you can go left or right. Same idea there. So you walk into this initial entrance area where they sort of give you the lay of the land, and there's a bar there, and there's guest services and stuff there. But then you walk out, and you're faced with 2 very large pools to the left or right of you, and then beyond that would be private cabanas, and then the beach. And the setup for the infrastructure is that on either end of the pools is food. So if you're walking towards the beach, to your left is sort of like the main restaurant area for Bimini. And then there's, bars sort of interspersed all around there. And then very far to the left is where the VIP cabanas are. And that's important. We'll get to that in a second. So it's greeting area, 2 very large pools, set of cabanas, and then beach. That's the setup. And it's huge. It's a very big space. It would be plenty for the entire ship. We decided to start with the beach. So we went down into the water. They've got swing sets set up in there. There are pool toys that you can play with, or beach toys that you can play with, like giant blow-up swans and stuff like that. That was good. Weather was great. Temperature of the water was perfect. They've also sort of partitioned off the beach, maybe like 100 yards out, and put up a barrier so that sharks don't come in. Because again, I'm definitely afraid of sharks. The one thing we did notice, there were jellyfish in the water, so we didn't spend a lot of time in the ocean. We ended up going back to get something to eat, and let me just say the food at Bimini was delicious. They did an entire roast pig while we were there, and it was amazing. Yeah, I thought the food was actually better than Castaway Cay. They did a pork dish, they had a fish, they had a chicken, a couple of vegan and vegetarian options, and then desserts and stuff like that. All of it free, part of your fare. Included. But then the other interesting thing is the menu changed halfway through the day.
Oh.
So it was, like on Castaway Cay, no matter where you go, it's the same food. Here it was at least 2 different menus. They may have changed it a third time, but I only saw the 2. So from like
how
11.
How long were you there for?
I was there from approximately 10 a.m. to about 8 p.m. So they definitely did one menu change throughout the day. And that was great. Plenty of places to sit and eat in the shade, easy to get drinks. The one thing I would say is there weren't as many. I think if the ship was full, there would have been a line to get sodas. Like the number of soda dispensers, I think, could be increased by a factor of 2. But the food was delicious. Service was excellent. Didn't have any trouble, for the limited number of people there were getting other drinks. And then we went to the pool. And basically, we hung around the pool the entire time, the rest of the day. The one thing I would say about the pool is the middle of each pool has a walk-in area with steps. It's fairly large. And that seemed to be where everybody congregated during the day. So on either pool, the middle part where you go down the stairs seems to be where everybody sat. So if you're looking to hang around other people, sit there. If you don't want to be around other people, sit at the edges.
Did they have entertainment going on around the pool too? Or?
They did. So there was a DJ. They had mer people. So they brought in crew members who put on giant flippers and became mer people. Also, we haven't mentioned the host. Her name is Abby. She's the hostess of the ship, and she came out and hung out at the pool as well. Abby's fabulous. We love her. And so she was there to basically make sure everybody had fun. The thing that we did was we started buying champagne for people around 11 o'clock. Have you heard this story?
No.
All right. So they had bottles of Moet, were relatively inexpensive, a 2x markup. So we had met some people on our NASA day where we didn't get off the ship. And so we had like about 8 people that we were hanging out with. But there's always time to meet new friends. My philosophy for this day was to buy champagne and walk up to people and say, "Hi, my name's Len. Would you like a glass of champagne?" And make friends that way. So that's what I did. As people were coming in, we were buying glasses of champagne. By the way, did you know that the Virgin app has a shake for champagne feature?
No.
Okay. So the idea is you pull up the app and you pull it up on your phone and you shake it like this. And then it asks you, it says, looks like you want to order champagne. We'll bring it to you, but just, tap here to confirm that
And
you want
is it literally just champagne?
Just champagne, shake for champagne. There's a special screen that comes up that are bubbles. And then it, asks you to confirm that you really want it. You tap yes, and they bring you champagne. I actually tried that 4 times. It only worked once. So there's definitely some technical issues to be worked out there. So it ended up being we had to go get champagne. So we were buying, bottles of champagne, and Moet was relatively inexpensively priced. So we started doing that. As you start giving out champagne to people, more people come over to see what the fuss is about. So we ended up buying more champagne. At the end of the day, we bought 22 bottles.
Oh my God.
Of champagne. True story. The bar actually ran out of Moet and had to go back to the ship. Also, I heard that the Moet reps were actually on the island at the time. So they must have been thrilled with what was going on. Yeah. No, we bought champagne for lots of people, had made lots of friends. It was great. That was a super fun day because we met a bunch of people we didn't know before, but everyone met everyone else and seemed to get along with everyone else, which was really, really good. We all took pictures with the mermaid, we took pictures with Abby, we took pictures with each other. You could tell that there were some, YouTube people who were walking around. They got great video of, people drinking bottles and bottles of champagne. I hope it was good for their content. Yeah, it was a great day. Weather was perfect too, the entire day. And then around 8 o'clock, when things get dark, they do bonfires.
Oh.
So that's when it becomes sort of subdued. The club music stops. They turn into acoustic music. And they've got 3 different bonfire areas set up on the beach. That's when it started to cool off a little bit, started to get dark. I stayed for a little bit of the bonfire, then headed back to the ship. But as I was heading back to the ship, there was a second or third wave of people coming off the ship just for the bonfires too. So the ship actually stays at Bimini till midnight. Wow. Meaning, you could dock like at 9 and be there for 15 hours, which is a long day, but totally doable too.
And there's no drink package, right? On Virgin
There are no drink packages. No, they do give you, there was a deal when we boarded where if you prepaid $300, you got $350 in drink credit. And we totally could have done that, but there are no drink packages. No. The other thing I would say is because the pools were so much fun, I don't know that, and based on their location, I don't know that I would use a cabana. I mean, if you just want to sit there and look at the ocean and do nothing else, that makes sense for the cabana. But if you want to be where the people are, I want to be where the people are.
Seeing it in my head.
Exactly. You want to be by the pool, and I didn't see any cabanas close to the pool. And also the VIP cabanas are the farthest away from everything. Again, if you like the privacy, that's great. But if you want to be part of what's happening, I don't know that I would spring for a VIP cabana.
Did you price them out at all? How did they compare?
$350.
Okay.
So less expensive.
So if Len's not buying you champagne, maybe you want to be off in a cabana. If Len is buying champagne, you want to
definitely be at the pool. Yeah.
So
the pool
we're all cruising in January now, I think is what I
was going to say. I think that cruise just sold out.
January 6th on Virgin. Yeah.
Well, you just announced the date. Do you really want that to stay in there?
January 6th or 7th. Yeah. It's the Dominican days one. Yeah. But like I said, people made it. So everyone that showed up, we had a great time. Everyone was super fun to talk to. I met a lot of really interesting people who did some really interesting things, for their careers. That was super cool. Yeah. And then, we actually met up with a bunch of them later on. That was our night for Korean barbecue. So as we were leaving, we saw a bunch of people that we had seen on Bimini on that day, and we're like, hey, come with me to the called Pink Agave. It's the Mexican place, but they've also got a tequila bar there. So we went and had tequila. I still think Castaway Cay is the best island in the Caribbean.
Have you been to Coco? Have you been to Perfect Day at Coco Cay?
I have, and my feeling about that is like I felt more nickel and dime there than I did at Bimini, even though at Bimini I was buying, bottles and bottles of champagne. It just was a different vibe for me. And maybe the kids had something to do with that too. Yeah, it was different. I definitely liked Bimini a lot for its laid back sort of atmosphere. And again, service was excellent. So, hats off to the cast members who did that. Yeah, I definitely liked Bimini more than Coco Cay.
So the last day's a sea day, and then you guys were back to Miami.
Yeah, and for the sea day, we were trying to get as much content as we could. We tried to eat at the restaurants we didn't eat at. We tried to find all the entertainment that we were missing. They do a ton of different dance shows and stuff like that. We caught a couple of those. I think Hannah did. We exercised again. I got another 3-mile run in. Yeah, and that was basically it. Hanging out with. Oh, got tattoos. We haven't even talked about that.
That was my last question. That was going to be my last question. Did you get a tattoo?
Talking. I was going to say.
Did get a tattoo. So the tattoo thing was interesting. They've got a tattoo parlor on board, and it's staffed with well-known tattoo artists. And the tattoo artists are only there 2 weeks at a time because they're pulling from people with well-established client bases, and they can't be away for like 3 months or 6 months. So everyone's doing 2-week rotations. My guy was Jason, who was from Long Island. The name of the tattoo parlor is Squid Ink, which was kind of funny. So Hannah and I had decided that we were going to get tattoos before we went on the ship. I mean, the interesting thing was like, because this was the first sailing, we didn't know whether the tattoo parlor was going to be a bust or whether it was going to be super, super crowded. The way it works is on the night of your departure, the tattoo parlor opens up at 7 p.m. for appointments. So we got there at 6:30 and there was already a line for people to make appointments. By the time we left at 7, like we got in and out at 7 o'clock, the line to make appointments was 2 hours long.
Oh my God.
And what I heard was every single slot for that cruise was taken by the end of the first night. There were that many people getting tattoos. And they did piercings as well. One of my friends got her nose pierced. A couple of friends got other tattoos. Hannah and I each got a tattoo.
What did you get?
So it goes back.
You don't have to share, but
no, it's the logo. It's the Van Halen logo. So Van Halen's my favorite band. We all know Eddie Van Halen died in October of last year. David Lee Roth, the lead singer of the first version of Van Halen, has announced he's doing 5 more shows, and that's it. And he actually announced that like 2 days before I got on the cruise. So I was like, okay, what can I live with for the rest of my life? The Van Halen logo. So
it's an iconic logo.
It is, and it looked good too. And it's not the most complicated artwork by any means. And the people who, Jason, the guy who did my tattoo, is extremely talented. This did not tax his abilities at all, but they are all very good. The other interesting thing is like people are worried about, the ship rocking back and forth when you get a tattoo. I'm like, have you ever seen anyone sit for a tattoo? You move around way more than that ship is moving around. Let me just tell you. So yeah, all the tattoos look great. Everyone that I saw.
Like, compare the prices. If you were to go to this guy in Long Island to get a tattoo, how would the prices compare?
They're comparable. So there's a $150 minimum on the ship, which is, to make sure that you're not getting like, was it in the Friends episode where Phoebe gets a tattoo that's a little blue dot? It's like, that's the entire Earth. Yeah. You don't want to do that. There's a $150 minimum. I think mine was $150 because it was simple. Hannah got something a little bit more complicated, essentially a Fleetwood Mac album cover. And I think hers was, I think they priced it at $450, but she ended up paying $350 for it. So, I mean, for the talent and the effort involved, it's comparable to what you would pay anywhere else. Really professionally done too. I mean, just really nice setup. Everything's clean, everything's sanitary, everything's comfortable. People actually bring you drinks too while you're getting tattooed, which, I mean, every tattoo parlor I've ever been to, not only can you not bring drinks in, you can't be drunk.
Right.
Apparently it's different to see, but yeah, super professional. I would totally do it again. They have a great art book.
Are you going to do it again in January?
We'll see. I must say no. I think it's called a flash book. Is that what tattoo books are called? But they have, I mean, just really extensive art and beautiful stuff. Like,
do the artists bring their own flash book?
Yeah, they bring their own. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because everyone specializes in a different style.
Right.
And stuff. Yeah. And they bring their own tools and they bring their own inks and stuff. So everyone brings their own thing. Yeah. But that was a highlight, actually. It was kind of great.
So thinking back on this cruise, what a great way to bookend it, I guess, with you and Hannah doing that together on that last sea day. Is there anything that we haven't talked about? And if not, I've got a tech question for you, which I think we can wrap the app up into a little bit.
We haven't talked about the tech stuff, but the tech stuff, there were definitely issues.
Okay. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you can think of besides that?
Food, entertainment. We haven't really touched on the individual entertainment shows, but if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to come back and talk about it. Let's talk about tech, and then let's talk about the disembarkation process.
Okay. So here's the question. One of the questions we had was, what tech is available on this ship that isn't on Disney, like an app to be able to open the room, track your family members? And I guess you've got a bigger perspective on it. What was the pluses and minuses of it? And is there anything that Disney could incorporate?
So one of the things that Virgin is trying is essentially their version of magic bands. So prior to the cruise, we got these little rope wristbands with a small RFID chip on them that we were supposed to use to open the doors and pay for things. This is the first cruise. Got to give Virgin a break here. Our bands, sailor bands, never actually worked to open the door. Mm-hmm. We had to go get a second pair of them, a second replacement. Those stopped working after one day. We got a third set. Those actually fell apart.
Oh, no.
Within 24 hours.
Oh, yeah, you're not making this up.
No. And they ended up giving us an RFID card, which worked great for the rest of the cruise. They actually ran out of little sailor bands. And you could tell like they were getting a lot of feedback on that. When you go down to sailor services, like I think everyone in front of me had the same sort of issue with the bands not working. The other thing was the Wi-Fi. So they have a free Wi-Fi that's included with your fare. They have an upgraded Wi-Fi for, I think, $40. I bought the upgraded Wi-Fi. It was very slow. Like I was getting less than 2 megasecond on that. And it could have been because first cruise, lots of bloggers, lots of, media stuff. It wasn't as bad as Disney's because I wasn't paying by the gig. Don't get me started.
By the megabyte, not even by the
megabyte.
gig.
Oh, that's right. By the megabyte. Yeah. Disney has the worst Wi-Fi on the seas. I think Royal Zoom package is the best. This was not great. It was better than Disney's, but not, I wouldn't call it acceptable. The other thing is that the app frequently just didn't work, right? I had to uninstall and install the app every day. And even then, there were times where like I started the app and it would just sit on the splash screen showing the Virgin logo and never progress beyond that. And so what they told us to do was stop the app and restart it. And sometimes that would work. But that was super frustrating. Like when all you're trying to do is see, is there an earlier dinner reservation? Uninstalling the app, reinstalling the app on slow Wi-Fi, remembering your username, remembering your password just to make a dining reservation. It was faster just to walk downstairs and go to sailor services. And I'm sure that's not what Virgin wanted from us there. So they've got some tech issues they need to resolve. And I think they know that too. So the good thing is that I didn't want to spend that much time on the internet. So that wouldn't have been a problem. If I ever had to do any actual work on the ship, that would have been a big concern. Yeah, that would have been an issue.
Well, hopefully that's something that they're going to resolve in the future. It does boggle my mind how bad Disney's is.
Yeah, and this isn't that bad. I mean, Disney's is still worse, but it wasn't good. And they definitely need to up their speeds.
Anything that you could see Disney taking besides just upgrading their Wi-Fi system, but were they doing anything different that you thought was creative?
I did like the idea of being able to change my dining times and make reservations for everything in the app. That was great. But Disney's got menus and stuff like that available as well. So I think that was fine. The other interesting thing that you could do though, and I haven't tried this on Disney, is you could select a debarkation time on the app the night before. So you could say like, we know we're coming in at 6:30. I want to be off at 7 or 7:30. And you can make if you wanted to make a breakfast dining reservation at the time, you could do that too through the app as well. So they would say something like, okay, you're getting off at 8. How about breakfast at 7? And they'll give you an option for that. So that was good. One different thing about getting off the ship was, like Disney will tell you, leave your luggage out by midnight the night before to get your luggage off the ship.
I think it's 10, but yeah.
10, whatever,
10 or 11.
Virgin did not do that. So you had to carry your luggage down. And so we were on deck 14, which meant an elevator ride. Normally, when I'm on Disney, I don't use the elevator at all. Like I try and get my stairs in by doing that. I would not try to take my luggage down, 9 flights of stairs on Disney.
I'm sorry. Back to the luggage made me think. Was there a dress code like for dinner?
No, for nothing. No, they did have one night where it's called Scarlet Night, where you wear some version of red. And people did get dressed up there. And the other interesting thing about that is if you didn't have anything scarlet, they actually brought out into the main atrium area by the roundabout clothes that you could get in all kinds of different sizes, accessories, all in the right color So if you didn't bring anything, you could wear something and then, bring it back. So they had like a little lending library of clothing, which was good. Yeah, that was great actually. And people went all out for Scarlet Night. In fact, actually for the next Scarlet Night, I came back and I ordered a custom shirt to wear for Scarlet Night next time.
Can't wait to see pictures. Please post them.
It's Scarlet, yeah. But it's, anyway. Yeah, so getting off the ship, you had to lug your stuff down. But getting off the ship, they have plenty of elevators. The elevators go fast. From the time we left our room to the time we got to the cab, we stopped once for passports, immigration control. It wasn't 10 minutes and there were no lines anywhere. It was easy getting on and off the ship. And in that respect, like Royal does that really, really well. Virgin, I thought, did it almost as well. And then Disney, I think, for whatever reason, doesn't do it quite as well there. So yeah, Royal getting on and off the ship is great. Virgin was right there with them and Disney could maybe learn something there. By the way, I'm not going to mention any names, but there were definitely people from DCL, executives from DCL on the Virgin ship to see what was going on. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, overall, great cruise. I think cabins start at like $1,400 or $1,500 for 4 nights. And the interesting thing, it's by the cabin, not by the person. So one person in the cabin is like, $1,400 or $1,500. The second person, I think, is just the incremental food and whatever taxes there are, which is really good for pricing. I thought it was a great value other than the bathroom setup, and the issues with technology. I thought it was great. I'd definitely go back and try it again. I mean, like I said, Hannah felt safe the entire time.
Yeah, that's
I
nice.
felt good about everybody that I met. There's more entertainment and more dining available than you could possibly experience in one cruise. All of it was of very good quality. I thought it was all very good value for money. I thought Bimini was great. Don't need to get off the ship in Nassau again, but I would make that a sea day, especially on a 4-night. So overall, I think it's a great entry, especially like I said, if you're in like that 25 to 40-year-old demographic and you're not going to be traveling with kids, I think Virgin is absolutely fine. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
I have one more question. So you've cruised Celebrity before. I know I have talked to...
I have not cruised Celebrity. I was going to, and then it got canceled because of the COVID, but you were on Apex, which is...
and I've been on the Edge. I've been on Celebrity. I actually love Celebrity. Like, I think you would love it. I think your wife would actually very much love it.
Yeah. So the big question I had for people who had been on, like, there were obviously a bunch of people who had been on like MSC and Cunard and Celebrity and every cruise line, and my big question for them was like, what is the nearest thing to this? And everyone said Celebrity.
Yeah.
The thing with Celebrity is, I want one of those really nice cabins with all glass walls, but they're like $20,000. I can't bring myself to. I remember
I booked it at like noon, the minute it went on sale, and it had gone up in price $5,000 before the end of that day. When they first released the Edge and released the pricing, and then I think I was even able to get like a Royal Suite the next year for not that huge of an increase. And now those prices are just, I can't do it anymore.
I know, I can't. The best deal I've ever got on a cabin was Royal on the Anthem, a 5-night out of Cape Liberty to Bermuda. We got one of the 2-story sky loft for $5,000.
Oh, wow, that's a really good price.
It was insane. Yeah, like I was like, I would do this all the time, and that's kind of spoiled me.
Now I will say, so you guys could try it, and you could even do a sky suite, and it is still So I am changing a cruise that I have for Thanksgiving 2022 to the Beyond 2022 over Thanksgiving for Disney Cruise Line versus the Sky Suite for my family of 3. I think I only have to pay like $700 more to go into the Sky Suite with all my premium alcohol, all my gratuities included, access to the retreat, all my upgraded internet, like everything, $300, I think $600 total of onboard credit. So everything I need. Yeah. And it's less than $1,000 more than a standard veranda cabin on Disney Cruise Line. The food is amazing.
Yeah, this was my comparison. So like the very best cabin you could get on Virgin is less than the least expensive concierge cabin on Disney. Like literally the very best room on any Virgin ship is less expensive than the cheapest concierge room on Disney. It's amazing.
I wonder though if that's pricing now, because when the prices for Virgin first came out, I didn't think they were that low for the number of days.
So and I could be a 5-night Mega Rockstar, I think all included for 2 people was $10K. And I think the least expensive concierge on Disney for 5 nights at the time, I looked at it, was like 11.9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see that.
And there's no question that I think for those two particular things, Virgin's a better deal. Again, more variety in dining, more variety in entertainment, drinks included. Yeah.
And the ability to play Eruption 11 o'clock at night in your cabin.
Exactly. So I'm actually bringing out did you play guitar?
No, but I'm a big Van Halen fan. So that was actually the first concert I ever went to.
It was my first concert too.
Yeah. It was David Lee Roth under, Fair Warning. That was. You
saw them on the Fair Warning tour.
Yeah.
God, it's my favorite album.
Dating myself there, but
yeah, mine was Diver Down actually. Mine was Diver Down, but eighth row center, baby.
Well, Len, normally we close out with some tips, but I think that you've pretty much covered every aspect of cruising with Virgin Voyages. I know that you're no stranger to the Disney podcast community, but if people want to get a hold of you, how can they follow you along with Jim Hill over at your podcast and just in touch with you in general?
So the podcast to do with Jim Hill is called The Disney Dish, and it's available at disneydish.bandcamp.com. You can find more of me at touringplans.com, and my email address is len@touringplans.com. I think on every social media platform, I'm at Len Testa as well.
If you're lucky in January and on Bimini, he'll be handing out Moet along with
exactly. They ran out. It was Vo as the backup, so that's fine.
Well, thanks again, Len. We really appreciate you coming on and taking time to talk about your experiences with Virgin Voyages. We love everything that you do in the Disney community, touring plans. We love using it when we go down to the parks. Thank you so much for coming on our show today. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Christy. I appreciate it.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Len for coming on and sharing his and his daughter's experiences as they sailed for the first time with Virgin Voyages on the Scarlet Lady. And it's kind of fun to bring some different perspectives, look at the different cruise lines that are out there. And especially with Virgin, I think Christy and I were really intrigued by this cruise line. If any of you will be sailing with her anytime soon, we would love to have you on. We actually have another one of our guests her and her husband have already been on, and we'll be bringing her on in the next couple of weeks to talk about their experiences with Virgin Voyages as well. Well, it is December 2nd, and we're moving into the holiday season. I know a lot of you have a lot of holiday plans out there with family and friends, whether you're cruising with Disney Cruise Line, heading down to Walt Disney World, Disneyland, or doing something just completely different. We have got a very maritime cruise coming to you, which we will have out next week. Also, Anawik and I are going to do a quick overview of our very maritime cruise as well on the Dream, so look for that one coming out. It'll be a shorter episode that'll probably come out next week or the week after as well, and we'll talk a little bit about our experiences sailing on the beautiful Disney Dream on a very maritime cruise. We'd also like to give a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters who help bring this show to you each and every week without any advertisements. If you would like to find out more on how you can support this show through our Patreon program, you can go over to patreon.com/DCLpodcast and find out all the information there. And just a regular plug, if you have time to go over to iTunes and leave us an iTunes review, that helps our show get known a little bit better in the Disney cruising, and just the Disney podcasting community in general. We appreciate each and every one of you who's taking the time to do that, or if you have time to do that now, we would really appreciate it as well. Well, as we move into the holidays, on behalf of myself, Steve, Christy, and Chris, all of us here at the DCL Podcast, we'd like to wish you and your families all the best. Enjoy the time that you spend with each other out there during this just kind of magical season. And we look forward to bringing you more content as we move through December. And we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Thanks for coming back and taking a listen. The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.